Hi, I'm Perry Atkinson, General Manager here at theDove. Hey, check out our other videos and check out our website at theDove.us. Welcome back, and coming up in just a few moments, we're going to have our good friend Bob Just with us and comment on what's happened as a result of the election. And nationally, things really swung the other way. Oregon just went bluer, and the country overall went more red. So what does this mean? And is it a mandate? I think it's one of the big questions. Is it a mandate? So we look forward to talking to Bob about that. Bob wrote an article that was published in WorldNet Daily, and WorldNet Daily ended up sending this article to over 500,000 people. And he basically encouraged people, Democrats, I should say, traditional Democrats. Now, Bob can explain a traditional Democrat, a progressive, an ultra-liberal. He's kind of been on all the sides of the fence there. He can explain what he means by a traditional Democrat. But he was encouraging traditional Democrats to boycott the election. And I don't know if they did, but it was an interesting article as he got really a wide distribution on that article. So anyway, last night, as you know, that the U.S. Senate now is 52 senators are Republicans. That's a clear takeover. Harry Reid will no longer be majority leader coming up after the first of the year. And it's possible by the end of the day, that number could go to 54. There's still a couple of races out there that are very, very tight. So, Bob, I think we have you on the phone.
Yeah, good morning. You tell Steve Johnson I heard everything you said.
Really? Well,
almost everything.
He meant it, too. So you're in New York, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And what's the feel there this morning after the election?
Well, you know, that depends on whose living room you're in. I think right now, I would say everyone is processing. I think what happened yesterday takes some real processing. And, of course, more numbers will come in, and there'll be, developed clarity over the next few days. And then the spin positioning will begin. Actually, the spin positioning will begin today, I'm guessing, but probably even started, with the Washington Post article in today's paper that's talking about, GOP reboot, certainly suggesting that the Tea Party element, quote unquote, in the Republican Party has been defeated, But anyway, I think processing. People are just processing. It's going to be interesting to see, Perry. I mean, the big question will always come is this a mandate? I'm sure you guys have been discussing that. And I think that's going to be one of the upfront questions.
Do you think it is?
I do. Absolutely, I do. I think it's not so. Personally, I think it's not so much about President Obama as it is about the things that he stood for and how he behaved, in terms of raw power. So they're, just the use of power, and some would say, obviously, abuse of power. So I think that's a lot of what the election hinged on.
Bob,
it's more than just anti-Obama. I believe that, and it's anti-lying to the American public. It's anti-class warfare, anti-racial politics, anti-gender politics, anti-socialism, anti-PC, just in that vein.
It's interesting, Bob. The country went more red yesterday, but Oregon went more blue. I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at that, but how does that strike you?
Well, it's interesting that Oregon very often likes to think of itself as the progressive vanguard, that it's the head, ahead of the historical curve. And I think this election shows Oregon is behind the historical curve. I don't think the 2010 election and this election are anomalies. I think that there has been a wake-up. I do think the 2012 election was an anomaly because of grassroots advantages on the part of the Democratic Party and other elements, presidential popularity of President Obama, et cetera. But I think that 2010 election and the 2014 election are defining what the American people think, what they're uncomfortable with, what they're concerned about. I don't think we as a nation have entirely processed this, but I think we're reacting from the gut, and I think over the next 10 years, even maybe over the next 2 years, there'll be a lot of processing. And that's why when talking about the Democrat voter strike, and, I'm not telling people not to vote, I'm saying, don't vote Democrat, just vote whatever way you can, because the Democratic Party leadership has just gone way, way too far in how they handle themselves and in the things they believe that are not at all in the mainstream of a center-right country.
Well, do you think they're asking themselves that question this morning? I mean, do you think Harry Reid's saying, I just pushed things too far?
Oh, yeah, too far. Well, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. That my party has to rethink, and part of the reason I wrote what I wrote is that it's not just changing names on the door. There needs to be a genuine change of heart. There needs to be a reevaluation of what the party's become in the last 20 years or so. And that's why originally in 2000, in the summer of 2000, before the kind of crazy election, I wrote Fascism, Corruption in My Democratic Party. It was I attempted to send a wake-up call to mainstream regular Democrats and say, the people who are at the head of our party now are one-party loyalists. It's party above America. And that's not the American way, either for the Democrat or the Republican Party. It's never been that way before. In fact, a famous John F. Kennedy, and I'm a John F. Kennedy Democrat, a famous President Kennedy quote is, quote, "Sometimes party loyalty asks too much," close quote. And he understood that. The Democrats who control the party now don't understand that. It's all politics. It's all about their ideology. And the heck with the American people and our traditions.
So it seems to me that you were trying, with your article and what you're saying, you're trying to put a wedge in the Democratic Party, much like the Republicans are suffering from now. And that would be the liberal Republican or the establishment Republican versus the conservative Republican.
Yeah, that's well said, Perry. That it's not so much trying to put a wedge; it's trying to say, hey, there's no debate in our party. There's a debate in the Republican Party. Whichever side you take, at least you can take satisfaction that there's a discussion, there's a debate, and it can get pretty heated. But think about it. Where's the debate in the Democratic Party? The reason for that is the way the left, the Marxist PC left, which is what my article's about, and I spend most of my time letting Newsweek make my case, the famous Newsweek article, a cover story released from back in December 1990. But you stop and think about it. Once the nature of the way the Marxist left works, the PC left, is that if you disagree with them, you're the enemy. It's not about discussion and debate and coming to what's right. That's a more traditional American concept. It's just basically you're either on board or you're the enemy. And so guess what happens to moderate or regular or mainstream Democrats is they shut up. And many of them quietly vote for another party. I would think like the Reagan Democrats voted Republican, and I think usually it's that. But the problem, and this I address in the article, Democrat Voter Strike, Change Our Party Now, is that a lot of Democrats, and I come from a long-time Democrat family, Roosevelt, Harry Truman, JFK, a Democrat family. The problem is that many Democrats are so used to voting Democrat, and they've been made to fear Republicans, which is part of the propaganda tactic of the left, so that it's kind of like, vote Democrat just, because you're afraid of the Republicans. Well, many of them knee-jerk vote Democrat, and I think this is across the board in all the categories. And so my article is attempting to say, hey, you do have a choice. The only way we're going to correct the leadership, change the leadership of the Democratic Party, and again, I don't mean changing the names on the doors. I don't mean replacing the current leaders with people who think like they do and act like they do and lead like they do. or mislead like they do. I'm talking about change, debate, real, let's get the door open, let the breeze in, and let's have a conversation on the Democrat side. And I can tell you, I got a lot of emails, Perry, of people saying, I'm so heartened that, there are Democrats who think that way, and so heartened to know that maybe that, discussion can begin so Republicans don't have to feel alone in having that conversation.
Well, it's possible now with the mandate from last night's election. That's very possible nationally. The Democrats will allow that door to be open and that discussion to take place. I would assume that what you're saying will continue on even to the next election cycle, 2016. But on the other hand, that fear and intimidation that Democrats do among themselves worked pretty good in Oregon last night.
Yeah, sadly, it's a technique that does work. It's been used by totalitarians, fascists, communists, whatever you want. It's an old tactic. It's shut up. Years ago, after 9/11, I wrote a column silencing Muslim moderates, and I described the same process of how extremists can shut up moderates because they're afraid. In our country, you're not afraid you're going to get your head cut off by your party leaders, but you are afraid that you will be out of a job, that you will be ostracized socially. When I created the Teach Freedom Award, Perry, you know all about this, and the most recent person to get it, Ronald Reagan, handed it to David Horowitz. And part of the reason I picked David Horowitz for the award is that he had the courage to change his mind, and knowing that he would lose all his professional contacts, all his social contacts, and that's what happened. Yeah. David Horowitz talks about it, and this is not the way Americans act. Republicans don't act that way. If you disagree, there can be some heated disagreements, but no one wants to, quote unquote, get the political knife out. They're not. They just say, look, we disagree, and we have to work this out one way or another. But that's not the way the Marxist PC side acts. As Newsweek said, one defies it PC at your peril. And so it's important to remember that what I'm talking about here is not me. What I'm talking about is the history of the Democratic Party, certainly the recent 20th century history of the Democratic Party, the last century. But I'm also basically in the article, as you know, quoting Newsweek. Newsweek is warning America about the rise of PC Marxism. And at the time when Newsweek did the story in 1990, PC Marxism had dominated many of the major college campuses. And lo and behold, 2 years later, when the Clintons rose to power in the presidency, that PC Marxist, ideology ended up in the White House. And guess what happens that mean? Well, you and I have discussed this for years. What does that mean? Well, if it ends up in the White House, it means it ends up in the judicial system. It ends up in the bureaucracy, whether it's the CIA or the military, right, because these people basically stick together, and anyone who doesn't agree with them is considered the enemy.
All right, let me take a break here, Bob. When we come back, Bob Justice with us this morning, live on the phone from New York City, and I want to talk to him about, even though the Republicans took control of the Senate last night and added to their numbers in the House, we are now in this interesting lame duck session where a lot of damage could be done. And I want his comments on that. We'll be right back with Bob Just. Okay, we're back, and our guest today is Bob Just. He's on the phone with us from New York City, and we're just kind of doing a little bit of a recap of the election last night and some of the results. As you know, nationally, things swung into the red zone. Locally, well, I should say statewide, things swung deeper into the blue zone, even though we did have some local races that fared pretty well. But, Bob, my concern is that this president, no question about it, he's going to feel the heat come January, that he just can't get everything through. It's certainly going to set up a scenario whether or not he's going to further abuse powers and do with his pen and phone and executive orders. But between today and the day that the new Congress takes over in January, he still has control of the U.S. Senate with Harry Reid. What damage could they do, and what are you afraid of?
Well, the one that's commonly singled out is some kind of executive order making approximately 11 million illegal aliens citizens, or some path to citizenship or right to work or whatever. I don't know what form it'll take. Let me just say this, and there may be other things certainly that he can do, but he has a problem, and this is the problem as I define it. This is the thing that weighs on our side, that it may not get too radical. Well, let me first say, on his side, the Marxist mentality, the Alinskyite, which I talk about in the book, in the article, the Democrat voter strike, Change Our Party Now, is that both Obama and Hillary Clinton are Alinskyite. And the nature of Alinskyite, the Marxist Alinskyite attitude, is to cause conflict and to keep causing conflict till people are tired, to wear them down, to create division. So that's what they do. So there's a very good chance he'll attempt to do that, and the illegal immigrant issue is definitely a hot button. He would definitely cause a lot of division in this country if he did something like that. But here's what weighs on the other side. The big danger for the left is remember, the left you and I have talked about this for years, but the left always pretends to be moderate, pretends to be family-oriented, pretends to be generally conservative. I mean, let's face it, Barack Obama ran as a JFK Democrat. I mean, the whole tone of it was JFK. Even the family stepped forward and said that. Well, of course, he's not that. Okay, so their problem is, what if the American public wakes up? What's exciting to those of us who are traditional Americans is the 2010 and 2014 election is it suggests the beginning of a political awakening, which, by the way, I think also connects to a spiritual awakening. When you realize someone's lying to you, there's a spiritual awakening. You start to realize who loves you and who doesn't love you, and issues like that start to come to fore, and that starts to get into the spiritual arena. So the big danger for the Democratic Party, for the PC leaders, the ones who control the party, the takeover crew, the big danger is that we'll wake up to just what my article is about. We'll wake up to who they are. So President Obama's problem is the more radical he gets, the more likely it is that the Americans will wake up. I thought one of the good things McConnell said in his victory speech last night is he said race isn't what this is about. There's a new race, and it's to turn this country around. He said that's his goal, to turn this country around. Well, Perry, you and I know, what does it take to turn the country around? It takes an awakened America.
Yeah.
You can't turn this country around if we live in a fog of welfare government, and the government says what's right and what's wrong, and not under God America, but under the government America. So we have to wake up to that, and that's what the hope of turning the country around. That's why you and I have always said that ultimately spiritual revival is the only thing that's going to rescue this country, both from our foreign enemies and from the domestic insanity, confusion that we face.
Bob,
So that awakening, that's their problem, is that we might wake up more if they get radical.
Yeah. Do you trust Mitch McConnell to do it?
Well, I'm glad he said it, because he put a marker down. And look, I am of two minds about McConnell, and I know there are colleagues of ours in the media and talk show hosts who don't like McConnell. McConnell said some things about the Tea Party that I still haven't quite forgiven him for. I mean, as I believe that mom and pop, get sanity back in the government Tea Party. I think that it's a good thing. And but I will say this, that I've watched McConnell for many years during the Clinton era, even back to the very end of the Cold War. And McConnell has stood in the breach so many times that I still have a heart for him. In other words, I still see he's a mild-mannered guy, and I don't know, I don't really know the answer to your question, but I have seen him stand in the breach, and so I'm hoping that this wake-up call that you and I are talking about, and by the way, my article isn't just for Democrats. It's good for Republicans to read the article because it helps them to understand. Oh my gosh, that same struggle is going on in the Republican Party. Maybe not so extreme, but it's going on. So the question is, will McConnell wake up based on the way Obama has been behaving and the Democratic Party has been behaving? What do you think about that?
Well, I've been trying to wrestle with it ever since it occurred. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is that there's some young bucks in the Senate, the Ted Cruz, the Marco Rubios, the Rand Pauls, and others, who are going to push him, and they're going to push him hard, and that needs to be done, and that really needs to be done. And you made the comment earlier about the Tea Party. I don't know if last night was a Tea Party victory. I do think that last night was a rejection of the president and his policies and his governing. And so, but if the Republicans aren't successful over these next 2 years, for whatever the reason be, then they can blame it on the Tea Party. And I'm concerned about that because I don't know if John Boehner is strong enough to take advantage of this situation now.
Yes, I understand. And of course, you add to that the presidential race and the fact that there are moderates who are going to be running for president. And I heard Karl Rove speak last night, and I see it as the Washington Post is positioning this as the Tea Party defeat because the main, the moderate Republicans, however you want it, but they would say they're conservative, and that's part of the debate. But the Karl Rove, establishment part of the party,
right?
They're touting that they had victory in primaries over Tea Partiers and got what they consider mainstream candidates, and consequently they won. But I think they raised the money, but the Tea Party people are the people in the grassroots doing a lot of the work.
Yeah.
And but the presidential thing is also going to shake out. What candidates step forward? How well do they represent constitutional Americanism? The Constitution wing of the Republican Party, which is the Tea Party wing. People like Cruz and others. How well do they articulate their case? I think it's an incredibly exciting time. I think this election was, wave doesn't even cover that. People have been using the word tsunami. Don't you agree? It's historically remarkable.
Well, it is. To pick up six seats, but to pick up 7 and possibly 9 when it's all done is phenomenal. When have we seen this kind of a turnaround?
It is. And, honestly, coming back to my article, and just the key is not my article. The key is to have a debate within the Democratic Party. What a good thing it would be for the country to see pushback from Democrats on the race, gender, sex, PC Marxism, the subpoenaing pastors in Houston and putting photographers in jail because they won't photograph a gay marriage. It's just gone way too far. We've just gone way too far, and there needs to be a debate on that, on foreign policy. Doug Schoen, who is a moderate Democrat who's on Fox News all the time, just wrote a book which I'm reading, is the Russia-China Axis, and he's talking about the serious foreign policy threat we face from Russia and China, while we're also focused on another serious threat, and that is terrorism in the Mideast and ISIS. The point is there are Democrats that are sensible about foreign policy, the Scoop Jackson Democrats, the John F. Kennedy Democrats. That sensibleness, that common sense has to transfer to social issues. It has to transfer to domestic issues. There were great victories by pro-life Republicans in this race. It's very heartening. So I just would like to see more common sense in the Democratic Party, and there won't be as long as there's no debate, as long as the PC leftists control the party and squash anyone who stands up and says, wait a minute, you're not really in the mainstream of America, and you're not historically mainstream Democrat.
All right, before I run out of time, Harry Reid obviously is not going to be majority leader after the first of the year, and there's even concerns now he may not even be minority leader, that he may be replaced with a Chuck Schumer or somebody. That's really losing it all, isn't it?
That's kind of frying pan to the fire. That's what I meant in the article. And, of course, the article, anticipates a lot of the game playing that's going to go on now. Because I say in the article, and I hope people read it, it's on bobjust.com. It's right at the top.
Okay.
Democrat voter strike. Change our party now.
Bobjust.com. Okay.
Yeah, bobjust.com. Thank you. The issue is, I say in the article, I say, look, they're going to change the labels on the door. They're going to change the names. But that's not what has to happen. What has to happen is the PC Democratic Party, the one that rose to power with Clinton and the Clintons in 1993, that's what has to be debated. That's what has to be confronted. And without that debate or confrontation, what they're going to do is they're going to do exactly what you just said. They're going to take a Schumer, who is absolutely PC-ite all the way down the line,
I gotta
and they're
go.
going to just plug in a new PC robot.
Gotta go. See you, man.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Come home someday. We really do like you out here. See you later.